Greetings, everyone. Pat Flynn here, and today I come with a very exciting announcement. This has been a very long time coming, but I could not be more delighted to say that my forthcoming book with Sophia Press, The Best Argument for God, is now officially set to be released on October 17th and is available for pre-order at all the usual places. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever books are sold, right? And just very quickly, I want to tell you about this book. If you haven't been following me for a while, maybe you were unaware that this was coming. If you have been following me for more than 5 minutes, then chances are you've heard me talk about this before. But I want to tell you what this book is about. I also want to tell you some cool stuff I'm offering related to the launch and pre-orders and stuff like that. And the long story short is this: there is a fair amount of material that was cut from this book because it was just way too big at first. So we had to make the executive decision to pull some stuff out. But some of the stuff that was pulled out is stuff that was like really dear to my heart. I love it. Some of it is related to Barry Miller and Barry Miller's argument for the existence of God. So what I want to do is, for anybody who's interested in who pre-orders the book, I have that material and I'm just going to give it away as bonus. So if you want even more stuff related to cosmological reasoning and philosophy of God and stuff like that, then what's already in the book, I have this the stuff that the extended edition, if you will, for anybody that pre-orders. So all you got to do is you pre-order, and you can email me, and I'll get you that bonus material as well. So that's the long and short of that. And I've got 2 full extra chapters of material related to cosmological reasoning and philosophy of God. I might include a third. We'll see. But there's at least those 2. So that's cool. But let's back up because we've sped ahead way too much. What is this book about? Well, let me give you actually a little tease of the table of contents. I think I can do that. I think I'm allowed to do that. So here, let me pull this up. Let me make this large. I'm very happy to say I got some really cool endorsements of the book, some early endorsements, some very nice words from some very smart people. But here's a little tease of what it looks like. This, of course, is the e-version, but it will be in print. And you know me, I always like to have my books in hand so I can wrestle with them and underline and highlight and dog ear and all that stuff. So I think I'm kind of old school, but I don't have the paper. I don't have the print version yet. I don't know exactly when I'm going to get that, but I imagine it'll be somewhat soon. And of course, we'll do some giveaways when I get some copies. All right, so here's what it looks like. Let me just quickly summarize the book if you're new around here. So the best argument for God is it was inspired in a couple of different ways, but at least one of the ways it was inspired was this. So if you look at Aquinas' Summa, Thomas Aquinas, where he considers the existence of God, he considers 2 objections against the existence of God. One is the problem of evil, which I talk about actually pretty significantly in this book. It's one of the final chapters, and I think I have some fairly novel things to say about the problem of evil. But it's the other objection that Aquinas considers that really was the launch pad for this book. And that objection is something like this: hey, the principles of nature are enough. We don't need God to explain the relevant features of the world that a sort of big picture theory of everything should explain. God is just unnecessary. And the very interesting thing about, and Aquinas, of course, addresses that objection in his own way. But the interesting thing about that objection, it's an objection that has stood the test of time. And it's an objection that modern skeptical thinkers and naturalists themselves use. And it might go something like this in contemporary form. It might say something like, hey, if 2 theories explain just as much, believe the simpler theory. Naturalism and theism explain just as much. Naturalism is simpler. And by naturalism, I mean a philosophically developed form of atheism. So believe naturalism. And here's the essential thesis of my book. It really comes down to this. The whole point of the book is to say, hey, naturalism can only explain some, but not all of what classical theism can when strapped with far more or far greater complexity. And then the whole purpose of the book is just to substantiate that. It's really going through what I consider to be the large-scale features of reality, the relevant explanatory targets for a worldview, things like contingency, consciousness, even suffering and evil. I think if you have a worldview, we need to be able to tell some sort of story about suffering and evil. And through each of those, with respect to each of those explanatory targets, I make the case that theism is, in some instances, the only possible explanation, adequate explanation, or in other cases, it's a better explanation and a simpler explanation. So the book covers an extremely wide range of territory, and it blends methodology. So the kind of front half of the book, it really is a more traditional approach to natural theology, and it develops a kind of contemporary cosmological argument, borrowing insights from, definitely thinkers like Aquinas and Aristotle, but contemporary thinkers as well, like who are, you know, uh, who have very much contributed to this area of philosophy, like Alex Proust and Rob Koons and Josh Rasmussen and stuff like that. And I'm blending insights, Barry Miller, of course, to run a contemporary cosmological argument that itself sort of generates the classical theistic worldview, fills out the details, which I then take and argue this as a worldview. This sort of foundational classical theistic theory of everything makes a lot of really powerful predictions. And it's also a very simple theory in the most relevant respects. So I have a whole chapter on how we should think about simplicity. It's kind of, let me just scroll down and show you the table of contents. Here it is. It's kind of a tongue-in-cheek chapter because I say it's simplicity, it's complicated. So here's a quick table of contents. So yeah, part one, it's all about the stories philosophers tell about, ultimate explanations of whether there even is an ultimate explanation. And that's all just a contemporary synthetic cosmological argument. Part two is where we kind of shift methodology and we go from the more traditional cosmological reasoning to more worldview comparison. And this is where we're now looking at these sort of rival competing hypotheses, classical theism on one hand and naturalism on the other. And we're looking at the theoretical virtues of explanatory power and scope and simplicity, with obviously a clear emphasis on explanatory comprehensiveness and simplicity. And I'm talking about why simplicity matters, why I think it's important, and of course, ultimately, I'm going to make the case that once we really have the best understanding of theoretical simplicity, theism winds up being the simpler, more unified theory in the most relevant respects at the most relevant level. So I make that, but then, of course, simplicity is really a secondary consideration, as I'll argue in the book. It's explanatory comprehensiveness that matters most. And then, part three is just looking through these, call them large-scale features of reality that I argue stand in need of an explanation. And then it's just comparing the stories, if you will, the types of explanations that classical theism can provide for things like stability and order and consciousness and rationality and semantic content and all that good stuff compared to the naturalistic theory. And yeah, some sections are more aggressive than others. In some instances, I argue that I don't think that there's really a plausible naturalistic explanation at all. Other times I'll say that, hey, there does seem to be a plausible naturalistic explanation here, or at least a possible one, but it's going to come with complexity costs, if you will, right? So that's the whole book, and I think it's unique. I think it's novel. It's very, by the way, it's very charitably written. This is not a polemical book. I wanted this book to be something that you could hand anybody, no matter where they fall on these issues and whether they agree with it or disagree with it. They will feel like it was carefully written, it was thoughtfully written, and it was enjoyable to read. I think there's like one or two jokes in here. That's as much as you can get away with in a philosophy book. But I I try to infuse a little bit of humor, and I want it to be fun to read. It does get technical at points. This book definitely waves in intensity. Some parts are very simple and straightforward. Some parts are really asking a lot of the reader. I'm asking you to go deep with me on certain issues, but I help you through these issues. And one thing that's kind of cool about this book is with the editor, we were able to kind of work in just different sidebars and features of the book that help you kind of go deeper in some areas if you want to, kind of offering a dual path to readership, because it was important for me that we brought the rigor with this book, but also the accessibility, because it is a popular level book. This isn't this is something I want, for the masses, if you will. But at the same time, I want, somebody who is the professional philosopher, somebody who's very familiar with philosophy of religion or worldview comparison to be able to feel like these issues were not diluted or anything like that. So that was very hard for me to do, by the way. That's not an easy project. Few other announcements. I'm having a chat with the publisher today, Sophia, on kind of the marketing and launch end. They've got me going to have me very busy these next few months doing interviews and stuff like that. So let me ask just a few brief things of you guys, the audience. First off, I would love it if you pre-ordered this book. It would mean a lot to me. Philosophy of the People has always been a project of passion and love. It's not what pays the bills for Pat Flynn. And same thing, I write books because I love to do it, and I hope that they help in some way. So it would just mean a lot to me if you pre-ordered this book and if you recommended it to other people and you shared it with other people as well. And if you do pre-order the book, again, hold on to your receipt, because soon I'm going to be making an announcement about that bonus content. I want to make sure you get some extra bonus material for pre-ordering. So I would super appreciate it. I don't think it matters where you pre-order it. Amazon's probably the easiest, but you can do it right off of Sophia's website too. I'll put the links below. So if you would pre-order, it'd mean a lot to me. Other things, I'm already giving, I already have scheduled, I should say, to do talks and events on this book at different places. So if you are a teacher or a professor, here's the thing. I wrote this book very much with the idea in mind that it could be assigned in a philosophy of God course or a natural theology course or a philosophy of religion course, either the entire book or just a chapter or two from the book. And I've already been in conversation with people about that. So here's the deal. If you want to look at the book, if you're a teacher or professor and you think, hey, maybe this is something I might want to get and assign to my class, send me an email. Because what I'm doing, either for different schools or even parishes, I'm doing some talks at parishes and stuff too. If this is something you're interested in, I'm happy to try and organize some sort of talk or something on it. If it's, whether it's online, you Zoom or Skype me in, or depending on my travel schedule and if we can work out all the details in person. If you're interested in that, if you're associated with an organization, if you're a teacher, a professor, a priest, and you want to do something with a parish, send me an email. We'd love to chat about it. And just we'll get the conversation started in that direction. And then that's probably about it. I know as soon as I hit the end recording, I'm going to be like, oh, I forgot to mention that one thing, which is always the case because Pat Flynn never comes with an outline for this sort of stuff. I like things to feel organic, as you know. Last thing I'll say is I'll just say thank you to all of you for being patient as I finish this project. As you know, it interrupted a lot of content on this podcast. Not too bad, though. We kept up a pretty regular stream of content. But this book, I don't know if you can see the gray hairs in Pat Flynn has a few more gray hairs in the beard and on his head than he did this time last year after writing this book. This thing was brutal. But I'm very happy with how it's turned out. And I cannot wait for you to read it. So thank you for your support. So many of you have encouraged me through this process, and it really means a lot, and I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate all of you and everything that you guys do to support this channel. And again, if you pre-order the book, it would mean a lot to me if you share it with other people, if you share it on social media. That's how we're going to spread the word, and that's how we're going to make sure this book actually gets out there. It'll be because of you guys. So I appreciate it. I appreciate you. There are more details coming on this soon, but those are the things I wanted to get out. It's up on pre-order. I'll put the links below. And if you want to talk about doing a talk or an interview or something, especially if you're a teacher or professor or something like that, or even if you, even if you just have a podcast and you want to chat about the book, I'm scheduling a bunch of interviews and stuff now for the next couple of months. So now would be the time to reach out, and I'll put all the contact info and stuff below. All right, guys, thank you so much. We'll catch you soon. Some cool content coming up.